right, so what we're going to talk about today is saddling our horse. And so the first thing that we want to do is our groundwork exercises that we've already covered, as far as forehand yields, hindquarter yields, both with rhythmic and steady pressure. We also want to make sure our horse can do circles at a minimum at a walk and trot, canter if our horses are ready for it, and then also be able to cross obstacles. So now that we've gotten the groundwork out of the way and established communication, we can work on saddling. And there's a few principles to saddling that we're going to cover. And a lot of it has to do with the positioning of the saddle, both how we're putting the saddle on our horse, and then also reading if our horse is comfortable with the saddle on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's called introducing our horse to the saddle and saddle pad. So I've got my saddle here on the ground, and I've just allowed my horse to sniff it and be curious. Some horses have never even gotten an opportunity to sniff the saddle and be curious about the saddle. So here I've given him an opportunity to sniff. Now I'll take my saddle pad, make sure that I have it facing in the correct direction. Okay, so up here we have our wither relief hole right here. Okay, and as you can see, there's leather protection that goes all the way from the front of the saddle where your D-ring will sit, all the way to the back of the saddle when the saddle's on top of the pad where your rear cinch might go. Okay, this part right here is covering no space for the saddle or the horse. So we know that this is the back of the pad and this is the front of the pad. So I'm going to allow my horse to sniff. Okay, again, I've got my rope in my left hand. Now all I'll do is I'll play a little approach and retreat with the saddle pad and make sure that this horse isn't fearful about the saddle or the pad. And right there I was just desensitizing the air. Okay, I was just rubbing the air, making sure that when I go to put this on, I have permission to put the saddle on and put the pad on. Okay, once our horse shows us that it can stand still, desensitizing the air, I might try to put the pad on her hair. Now right there, she just moved. So what I did was I lifted my lead rope up, and I'll turn her around so that you can see me. I lifted my lead rope up and asked her to stop. Okay, again, because we're seeking permission to put this saddle and pad on. If she walks away, I'll just lift up, ask her to disengage and stop, then rub her. Okay. Okay. So again, we're going to take our saddle and our saddle pad, our saddle pad, and just rub our horse with it, making sure our horse is confident before we just throw something up on top of her. Okay. Once we see that she has relaxation, she's not moving her feet, okay, we're going to throw that saddle pad on top of her back, and we're going to position it just over her withers. Okay. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get my saddle. Okay. And this is very important. I'm going to put my rope in my right hand just over my elbow. Okay, so I've got freedom to use my right hand if I need to. Okay, I'm going to ask her to yield and turn and face this direction. Okay. Now I'm going to switch sides and come to her right side. Okay. Now I've got my saddle on my left hip, and I'm holding the saddle with my left hand over the cantle or the back of the saddle. And as you can see, I can turn this saddle up okay, making it easier for me to put on my horse's back. All right. Now I've got my left hand at the front of my saddle, okay, right underneath the gullet. And I'm just going to rock my saddle, all right, and get a swing on it. And I'm going to keep my right foot, okay, I'm going to keep it stationary. I'm going to swing my left hip and my left foot. I'm going to take a step toward her, lift up and on. Okay, and that saddle should go on as smooth as me just putting on a hat. Okay, it shouldn't feel like it's flopping on her back or hitting her hard. Okay, and also we don't want to lift the saddle up like this and come at her. Okay, she could run away or try to escape. We want to put the saddle on our hip, rock our hip, then lift up and over. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure this saddle is in position. Okay. Right here is her shoulder. Okay, her shoulder blade or her scapula. Now I'm just going to lift that rope up, ask her to stop. Okay, she just decided to walk away. Okay, she's got her scapula right here. I can feel for the back of the scapula and see if my saddle and saddle pad are just over the scapula, okay? I don't want my saddle too far forward. So I'll turn and face her toward the camera. Okay. So I don't want this screw right here touching the scapula. I want it just back behind the furthest point of the scapula. I want to be able to run my hand through and not have my hand get stuck. Okay, that means I have a pressure point. Okay, the next thing is we have our Cinch Keeper. Okay, this is a very important part of the saddle right here. This holds our cinch, and this right here is our cinch that goes around our horse's belly. This holds our cinch when we're not riding the saddle, and it allows us to dry out on the rack. So it's very important that we use our Cinch Keeper here. And to undo it, I just lift my cinch up, pull the tab on my Cinch Keeper, and then allow my cinch to hang down. Right here, we have what's called an off billet. Okay, this particular piece of leather is a buckle that buckles into our cinch. Okay, and we can make it longer, make our cinch longer by going down, or make it shorter by going up, and this is all depending on the size of our horse. Okay, there's a couple different versions of this. Some of these tie on. Okay, this is a buckle version. At home I also use the ones that tie on because sometimes they're a little bit more accurate in terms of sizing of horses. All right, this right here is the center of our cinch. Okay, and these buckles allow us to either tie to a rear cinch, so the rear cinch stays in place, or center a breast collar. Okay, so today we're not going to be using them, but this right here is the center line, and you want this center line in the very center of your horse's chest. Okay, underneath here, you want it right in the center. Okay, the way I can do that is I'll let my cinch hang. Okay, and I'll take a look and see if my cinch is falling towards center line on my horse. Okay, and right there, if I look at it, okay, it's falling right about its center line on my horse. All right, so now we'll come around to the other side, to the left side. Now again, we saddled our horse on the right side because it's easier, especially with Western saddles, to put the saddles over on the right side. All right. So now we're on the left. Again, I never let go of my horse. Okay. When you watch me working with a horse, okay, I don't drop the lead line. I don't let someone else hold the horse. I have the lead rope in my arm right here at minimum, okay? So I've always got control of my horse. I can always control the situation. And also, if I run into a problem, I can address it immediately. This is about building a relationship, okay? Not just about saddling. All right, so now we have our latigo. Okay, this is a piece of leather on the left side of the horse that's used to tie the saddle. This right here has been very savvily tied into a knot so to hold this latigo together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this is set up. Okay, set it up a little differently. So here's how I always put saddles away. Okay, I've got my latigo here. Okay, when I go to store the saddle in the tack room, I'm going to take my latigo, push it backwards, push through the D-ring. Okay, right here is our D-ring. Okay, I'm going to make 2 loops, and then with the tail, I'm going to come around away from me and tie once, and then I can store my saddle. So when I go to cinch my horse, like I'm going to do right now, I have an easier time doing it. It saves me a lot of time and effort. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left hand and run my left hand down my horse's belly to let her know I'm coming. All right, I don't grab at my saddle because I could spook my horse. So I just want to slide my hand down, hold my cinch. Okay, now notice that I'm not letting go of the cinch. I'm holding it, and I've got about hair pressure on my horse. I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to untie the knot in my latigo, put the tip of my latigo through, okay, and I'm going to just pull all this latigo all the way down. Now this saddle has a large skirting, so it's a little bit, the D-rings are a little bit short on this, okay, so it's a little bit hard to pull this latigo through. So now I've got 1 loop through my cinch, okay. I'm going to put the tail of my latigo through my D-ring again, okay, and if you can, do this while you're holding your cinch still, okay. Now I'm going to snug this up just about hair tight, all right. Now I can let go of the cinch because I've got enough pressure that this will hold together at least until I tie it. Okay. Now, the next step is I'm gonna do a tie. There's a couple ways to tie. I'm gonna show you the easiest and most efficient way to tie a saddle on. Okay. It's gonna be similar to a half Windsor. So I've got the tail of my latigo here. I'm going to come through my D-ring again, and pull out to the left. Pull my latigo out to the left. I should see the rough side of my latigo. I've got the smooth side and the rough side, okay? Then I'm going to come across my latigo with the tail, okay? Come across and back up and through my D-ring one more time, okay? Once I come through my D-ring, I'm going to come through the center of the latigo and make a tie, okay? That should look similar to how you tie a tie or how you do tie a half Windsor knot, okay? Now, my saddle isn't fully tied yet, all right? My saddle is only just resting on the horse, as I like to call it, okay? So we wouldn't want to ride this horse. We wouldn't want to just saddle up and ride. Now you notice another thing, I'm not forcing the horse to breathe out. So some people try to force the horse to breathe out by either being rough with them and trying to get them to breathe. We're not going to do any of that. What we're going to do is we're just going to walk our horse off, because sometimes when we saddle, our horse takes a big breath in and holds it, and then lets it out and our saddle becomes loose, okay? So we don't want that. So instead of forcing her to breathe, I'm just going to walk her around a little bit, okay? I could even do some groundwork, okay? I could send her on a circle. Again, we've already discussed our groundwork exercises. All right? And I can let her breathe out with that saddle on. We don't have to do a whole lot. We just have to let her walk around enough to breathe out, okay? Now I can come back to my saddle, ask her to stop. I'll just loosen up this knot a little bit, and I'll put my right hand here on the latigo, my left hand here on the left side of the knot, okay? I'll lift up on my latigo and pull right on the knot. Lift up on the latigo and pull right on the knot, okay? And I'm tightening my cinch, okay? I'm tightening my cinch. I'll show this to you again because this is a very important part of saddling. This is where a lot of people get confused. I'm going to loosen this up, okay? So in order to tighten my cinch, after I've already tied my knot on and I've let my horse walk around a little bit, I'll just loosen this knot here, and I've got my right hand on the latigo, the first loop in the latigo, and I've got my left hand on the tie. Now I'm going to pull up on my right hand and pull to the left with my left hand. Pull up and go left, and I'm going to take out all the slack out of my latigo and tighten up that cinch, okay? Now I can check my cinch by sliding my fingers through the middle of the cinch here below and just see if it's tight, okay? I should be able to get no more than 2 or 3 fingers into that cinch down there. If I can fit 4 fingers or even my whole hand, it's too loose, all right? So how tight should we make a saddle, all right? Well, how tight should you put a belt on, all right? You want it to be comfortable enough that you can move around, but not so loose that your pants fall down, right? So it's the same principle with the saddle. You don't want it to be so tight that the horse is uncomfortable and you're going to cause a behavioral issue. But at the same time, you don't want it so loose that it's going to fall off. So it's a happy medium. All right, so we're going to do that again in terms of moving our horse around. Now again, another thing I want to point out to everyone is that you want your saddle pad and your saddle. We'll back this horse up a little bit. Help her learn how to back up. You want your saddle pad and your saddle to be centered on your horse's spine. So you want the center stitching of the saddle right in the middle of your horse's spine, and you want the center of your saddle to be in the middle of your horse's spine. So if you look, all right, the stitching on my saddle pad, if you guys can see it, okay, here's her spine, okay, the stitching on the saddle pad is right in alignment with her spine, and the stitching on the saddle is also in alignment with her spine. Okay, so this is an easy way to see if your saddle is straight or if it's crooked. If it's off to either side, you need to realign it. Okay. All right, we're going to go one more time. Okay, usually I'll cinch up about 3 times. So we did our first tie knot, then we moved her around, we cinched it up again, and I'm going to move her around one more time, allow her to breathe out, and then we'll cinch her up one more final time. Now, at first, before you get the feel of this, you might have to cinch her up 4 or 5 times. Okay, you might make it a little bit too loose. That's okay. I'd rather you be cautious and try to make sure that this cinch is tight enough than go with a saddle that's a little bit too loose. Okay, just let her walk around a few laps. Now I'll look at my horse's hip, slide my hand down the lead rope, okay, and disengage my horse, okay. I'll move my horse using, again, I'm using all my same principles to move this horse around and even get her in proper frame for the camera. I'm going to ask her to yield her front end using follow a feel of steady pressure. Yield the forehand, okay? All right, so now I'll see if our saddle is tight. I think it probably can use one more tightening. Okay, so I repeated the process of pulling up on this first loop here, okay, and then tightening with my left hand with this tie knot here, okay, and I pulled all the slack out, and now our saddle is fairly tight, okay. Now I can start not only doing a little bit more groundwork with the saddle on to make sure my horse is ready to ride, but I can also feel confident that if I needed to step into the saddle, we'd have a saddle that's tight enough. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work with a little bit of groundwork, okay, to warm our horse up. But this is our first initial step towards saddling with a Western saddle. And by the way, I do the same thing with English saddles. The process doesn't change. Just because the equipment changed doesn't mean the process changes. Okay? This is another thing when you start working with these colts. Get handy with your equipment, okay? Be able to walk your horse places, walk your saddle, walk your pad. You never know when you're gonna have to do multiple things at once. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let him sniff this pad on the right side, and I'm just gonna desensitize the air. Again, I got my rope in my right hand ready to correct, desensitize the air. Then I'm gonna put that pad on top of him and rub. Put that pad on top and rub, okay? Make sure he's confident with this. If I see that he's nice and relaxed, then I might put that pad on him on the right side, take it off, okay, put it back on. Really make sure that you open up that pad and put it on these young horses so that it feels like it's just sliding right on, okay? I'm hitting a little bit of resistance from the wind, so I gotta be a little bit careful. I can support my pad with 2 arms. Okay, trying to get this pad over the wind. Good. Okay, we're gonna come on the other side, on the left side. Do the same thing. Okay, don't need him sniffing the saddle yet. There he goes. Okay, desensitize the air. And desensitize the hair. Come all the way down his rump, okay? And put that saddle pad on him. Now he's looked at that saddle enough, so I'm gonna back him up. Okay, we'll work on this back up again. Lift, ask, drive. Okay. Lift. I'm asking for him to back up. Now I'm driving. Okay. He's just going sideways, so I'm going to wait till he puts a back up there into his hind feet. There. Good. He's got to find lightness. I'm not going to quit. He's got my lead rope on my left hand. sorry, on my right hand, my left hand's got my saddle. My left hand's across the pommel here. Okay, elbow straight. Right hand at a 45-degree angle. Got my right foot right next to his shoulder. I'm just going to swing this saddle on my hip and come up, over, rub. Okay, and take it all off. Okay, come back with our saddle pad on. Okay, our saddle, get our horse's attention. Okay, we want those horses focused on us, not looking away. Okay, put my saddle on my hip, make sure my rope is organized and not hung up in that saddle. Swing up, over, and on. Okay. Gonna make sure our saddle pad is as even as possible underneath our saddle. Take our cinch off from our keeper. Let it hang. Okay. Come to the other side. Okay, take our left hand, slide it underneath our horse, put our cinch across. Okay, slide this latigo through. Okay, if he's trying to eat me, I'll just gently discourage him with my hip. Say, please don't nip on me. He can sniff me. I don't want him to become a nip. Okay. Go once around, hair tight, and tie it off. Okay. Tie this knot by pulling the latigo out to the left, around to the right, up through the D-ring. Okay, and come down through the center. You're going to do a half Windsor. Okay.